Looking for something to read? Well, these are the books that I've written. Hop on down to the description to find the Amazon links for all 4 of them, and keep your eyes open for more in the future. With that said, on to the video. Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am the Omni viewer, and before I continue with the Godzilla showdown of Gojira vs. Shin Godzilla, there's a particular comment on part 1 that I felt I needed to address before going forward. Now, I'm not gonna out the person who said this, and if you go back to the comments and you find out who said it, do not harass this individual, okay? But I did want to address a particular thing within that comment. It's a comment that does not agree with my assessment. Though there's no actual refutation of anything I say in the comment, it's more about me than it is about my arguments. So, you know, you could call it an ad hominem reply, but either way, the first 2 things were like saying that I was overly negative and that I condescend to my audience. Now, as far as being overly negative, I mean, yes, the video is pretty negative towards Shin Godzilla. For like the first half of it, though, I think a little bit more than half actually, it's about Gojira and it's very positive. Most of my channel is actually about positive videos, but you know, but whatever. If people want to see me as a negative Nelly, that's their prerogative. As far as me being condescending, well, that's something I try very hard not to do. I mean, most of the time I assume that you guys are really smart to the point where you'll understand what I'm saying to such an extent that occasionally, especially if I'm going off the cuff like this, I might actually leave out some things that would make the point crystal clear because I just kind of assume that you guys know what I'm talking about. If at any point in that video or any other I did come across as condescending, I do apologize, but that really isn't my intent. And really, my intent with this video is not to respond to either of those things. It's more to address something that honestly came as a surprise to me. You see, the comment stated that it felt like the reason I was making this video was just to capitalize on the controversy of Hideaki Anno and his behavior on the set of SHIN KAMEN RIDER, which was the first I'd even heard about it. I read that comment and I was like, wait, what controversy? I didn't really hear anything about that. Granted, I haven't been following news about Shin Kamen Rider, but I really hadn't heard anything at all. So I started searching around and asking people if they had heard anything, and eventually someone sent me a link to a channel called Ayaku Web, which did a video covering exactly this topic. Now, if you guys want all the details, I'll provide a link to that video down in the description. I don't want to steal Ayaku Web's thunder, so seriously, go check it out. That'll give you the full extent of it. But I will summarize the main idea. Here's the basic summary, though. There's an NHK documentary about the making of Shin Kamen Rider, and one of the things it managed to capture was some on-set friction between Anno and the action coordinator, Kagenari Tabuchi, I believe they said his name was. What basically happened is that Tabuchi did what all action directors do. They choreograph the fights, they have the actors and stuntmen rehearse those fights to make sure that they get them absolutely perfect, and then they're the ones that are predominantly in charge when it's time to film those fights because they're the ones that know what's really going on and what's safe and what's not. But when they were filming the fights, Anno kept saying that he wasn't satisfied. The fights looked too staged, so he was demanding these bunch of on-the-fly changes to have the fights look more raw and realistic and match more the vision he was going for. And it created a lot of tension because, you know, Tabuchi had spent so much time perfecting these fights, and now he was being told at the last second, heck, not even at the last second, during the actual event, to make changes to them. And there's a moment where he stormed off the set and Anno had to ask him back with tears in his eyes and everything. Now, you go down to the comments section, you're gonna see a bunch of different reactions. You'll see the Anno haters saying they're not the least bit surprised Anno's acting this way because he's a jerk and a hack and all those things. On the opposite end, you'll see the Anno diehards circling the wagons and saying that he's an auteur and that his passion sometimes leads him to cross certain lines. There are even a couple of people who are wondering if the whole thing was staged, because Anno has staged conflict for behind-the-scenes documentaries at least once before. And the way it plays out, some people wonder if it's maybe a little too convenient the documentary crew caught all that stuff, especially since Japanese behind-the-scenes productions like this don't usually catch behind-the-scenes drama. Now, that's not to say they never catch it. I mean, you don't have to look very hard to find footage of Hayao Miyazaki chewing out the people he's working with, and they just have to sit there and take it while you can see the light leaving their eyes. But in terms of whether or not I think it's staged, I don't really know. I mean, again, Anno has done it before, but let us also not forget that Anno also once told one of his voice actors on Evangelion to straddle and choke another voice actor in order to get a line reading that was absolutely perfect. I mean, he didn't even wind up using that line. He had to do something else entirely, but that was part of the process. So, is he the sort of person who would cross a line to get what he considers to be perfect? I wouldn't be surprised. Like I said earlier though, this was the first I'd heard of it. I had no idea that controversy even existed, and finding out about that controversy was really difficult because not a lot of outlets are actually reporting on it. At least not ones in English. But in point of fact, there's no possible way that this particular event could have had an impact on those scripts, because I wrote the scripts back in 2020. I'm not kidding. I know that means I've been sitting on them for 3 years now, but it's true. The reason I didn't film them right away was because I wanted to keep going over them over and over again, fine-tuning each point to make sure it was as airtight as possible. But this is the God's honest truth. I wrote those scripts back in 2020. And SHIN KAMEN RIDER wasn't even filming back then. I don't even think Shin Ultraman was filming back then. It might have been, but SHIN KAMEN RIDER definitely wasn't. So that controversy had not happened. So I can't possibly have had that in mind when I wrote the scripts, and as far as making the video, like I said, I had no idea that was happening until well after the video was posted. Now that I do know it's happening, it's not going to have any impact at all. I'm not going to go back and start working that into my other scripts because that would just be petty, really. Again, I can't necessarily rule out that the whole thing was staged, though I don't necessarily believe it. But the thing is, why would I even include that? I'm not trying to do a character assassination of Anno. I'm breaking apart the movie he made, which I don't like. If anything, I actually don't hate Anno. If you go back to my earlier Shin Godzilla videos, you'll actually see that I praise his character writing most of the time. His plot writing, that can be a bit more hit or miss. But when it comes to writing fully realized, multi-dimensional, understandable, and sometimes even relatable characters, he excels at that. And that's why Shin Godzilla is even more frustrating to me, because the characters in that movie are so flat and uninteresting. And to call them one-dimensional would be giving them one dimension more than they actually have. And I just don't understand how Anno dropped the ball that badly in that regard. And again, I say that because I know how good he is at writing characters. It's kind of like if I went to a gourmet restaurant because the chef there personally makes the best filet mignon in the world. So I go there, I order the filet mignon, I pay the full price, and the chef personally brings out a plate with a McDonald's hamburger on it that was microwaved for 30 seconds. And now a bunch of people are gathering around saying, wow, look at that delicious filet mignon. And I'm staring at my plate thinking, is it under the hamburger? What exactly happened here? I was told I'd be getting something really great, and I was expecting that. And the guy who apparently has the skills to do it really didn't deliver. That's my feeling. That's the worst thing you're ever going to hear me say about Anno. I mean, that, and I think it was really crossing a line to have his voice actors actually physically assault each other. But, you know, that was long, long ago. He was going through a bunch of stuff back then. I've heard he's gotten past that now, so again, I do not hate Anno, and I don't want to capitalize on controversy, so I'm not going to work this into the videos going forward. The scripts are written, they are as good as they possibly can be, at least as far as I'm concerned, and I'm not going to stuff that particular bit of controversy into it retroactively, because that would just be petty. That's not my intention here. I'm just focused on the movie and deconstructing why I do not think it works. But anyway, I just felt like that had to be addressed, lest somebody get the wrong idea and people start spreading that around and painting a picture of me that would be inaccurate. Anyway, now that that point is addressed, I've got that video and several others to get going on, so may as well do that. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off. Thank you all for watching. If you want to see us keep doing what we're doing, you might consider doing all the usual YouTube things, as well as hopping down to the description to find links to DeviantArt, Patreon, Twitter, and links for the different books in the Tales from the Omni Vault universe. Your support is naturally appreciated. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.